Okay, so I'll start off this meeting. Thank you to much everybody for being able to actually join in virtually online. Happy New Year to everyone. And I'm sorry, it's been a rocky start to this year. So much has happened, and especially to our close families. The SWBAY, we've just lost Chief Aiar Rantes, yeah, he one big fella, chief lo me fella lo SWBAY and elder law church too. And sadly, Kirk has related his personal news as well. He lost his mother. Was it last week, Kirk?
Yeah, last Thursday.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. So, yeah, our condolences.
Thanks.
More importantly, thank you to us for joining this virtual Zoom, that we can just keep the momentum going, I thought. I don't know how everybody feels about this. It's fairly, like we've only just had Christmas and New Year, but I feel like we have to actually do something this month. Michael, I know it was a bi-monthly meeting that you suggested, and I looked it up in Google. And Google said it was twice a month, or it can be once every 2 months. So, yeah. And so, yeah, I thought we will start with the agenda, if that's all good. So an extra welcome to Alan. No, sorry, Alan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's joined
Alan,
us.
not Bridget.
Not Bridget. I was going to call you Peter. So yeah, but
yeah, you could also call me Peter. I've also been renamed in Malekula. There I'm known as John Luckett.
Right. Okay. All right. So
you can call me John if you like.
More new introductions, but I thought if we stuck to the agenda, we'll do a 1 minute a tribute silence to our chief, and then Alan, you can introduce yourself. But I think we've got quite a bit to actually just talk through, and I'm hoping that the SWBAY people can actually join us. Maybe the weather's not too good, SWBAY. I'm not sure. So
it's not good.
Okay.
SWBAY, it's not good. There's a big winds and waves in SWBAY.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to keep a time on just that 1 minute that we will do as that silence for tribute, Lord Chief Elder Aiar, and then we'll come back to you, Alan, to introduce yourself. Sounds good? Okay. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I'll give the floor to you, Alan, to introduce yourself. And
Sorry, Alan or Lena, Alan, can you just text Ambong to ask him if he's down at the call center, if he's trying to log in or something?
Yeah, okay. So what was supposed to happen was that Ambong and Kaitip were supposed to get together.
Yeah.
And I was going to try and see them yesterday, but yesterday turned out to be incredibly busy for me. And I'll tell you a bit about that because it involved a meeting with the Minister of Justice. I don't know whether they are together, and I haven't got my phone with me, but I can call. I've got a young friend actually from Malekula staying with me, but from the masculines. I can ask him to get my phone and see if we can get hold of him.
Yeah, because I had a message from
Marcel,
Ambong saying
Marcel,
he and
Kaidi
were going down to the call center.
Can you bring my phone? We need to text Ambong Thompson to see if he can come and join, or just even call him. Maybe we could. Yeah. Marcel can call him.
Okay, because the thing is, I'm just wondering, because Lena, you'd said 6 p.m., but I'm just wondering whether Ambong thought it was 6 p.m. Vila time, which does cut into other activities, so, you know.
Yeah, true.
Sorry.
Especially for Ambong and Kaitip.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, and for me, actually, come to that. But no worries. Let me just see if my phone contacts, if I can find Marcel, just see if you can find a number for Ambong Thompson or Kaitip. So yeah, there was a kind of a tentative plan. I saw Kaitip on Wednesday or so, Tuesday or Wednesday, and there was a plan that we three would get together. But as I said, I was going to go and maybe pop in and see them yesterday, but it turned out I needed to have a meeting with the Honorable Esmond Sai. Oh, nice for you. We don't even have a plastic here, but I can send Marcel up the road to get a plastic.
Okay. Sorry, Lena, this is all men's stuff.
If you get hold of him, just ask him if he knows that the meeting is on. Just say you're with me. Okay, we trying to get Kaitip on the phone. We can't find Ambong's number. Marcel is talking to him and we'll ask him.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, we could use slit drums. We could do this if we had the slit drums. We could do it all by messaging. You know, in the old days, you could get a message from the southwest tip of Malekula. Yeah. All the way to South Pentecost within about half an hour.
Yeah, true.
By sending
listen,
along the southern coast.
What does Kaitip say? Kaitip says he's about to join. Is he going to join? Is he among? He didn't say. Anyway, if he joins, he'll tell us. Kaitip is supposed to join soon. But given that Kaitip knows me pretty well already, I don't think I need to introduce myself to him. So I'll just follow Lena's suggestion and introduce myself. But I think you guys know pretty much as you need to know about me already, one way and another. Maybe Michael, you don't really. I'm an anthropologist, South African by origin, but lived in the UK, did my postgrad studies in the UK, lived in Australia, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, did most of my field work in Malawi and have been back there numerous times to do follow-up field work and research and teaching. And now I'm here basically because my wife is the director of an international NGO. And so I tagged along with her as, you know, what they kindly called a trailing spouse in Indonesia. And so I needed to find something to do. And lo and behold, it found me in the shape of George Thompson, who said, you know, we've been planning a museum here and you're an anthropologist and you're a Cambridge boy. So, you know, what's holding you back from helping us? So I said, well, nothing much. And so we kind of took it a bit forward. And I suppose the real kind of momentum started when I just happened to meet I think it's Lena's uncle, Esmond Sai, the Honorable Esmond Sai, in Santo at a hotel. And I told him about the project, and he and the Director General, Acting Director General then, were pretty enthusiastic. And so it started to get some sort of official status. And then, you know, the museum has been, they encouraged me then to, obviously, I mean, I knew the people at the museum, but they encouraged me to sort of make a formal proposal with the museum, and then to try to get some sort of an attachment with the museum. So what's happened is that I've applied, or the museum has applied for me for an Australian volunteers, an AVI position contract for 2 years to work basically as a counterpart with KITIP to work specifically on developing the Southwest Bay Museum project. And so, yeah, so I mean, I've been to Southwest Bay now, what, 3 times. This last time, I didn't really accomplish what I planned to accomplish because of the tragic and unexpected death of the chief Aiar Rantes. So instead of that, I, you know, made the customary gestures on behalf, I was asked to do that on behalf of the museum, on behalf of Kirk, on behalf of Numa Fred Longer and the other field workers like Dixon Dick and various others, and also the Thompson family. So I met Jimmy Rantes, the son, your brother, Kirk, and I think he was very happy with the black pig that we brought.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
He said, even though I'm new in Vanuatu, I appeared to know the right thing to do. So I said, well, I've been advised by many people, including most of all Kirk, who told me, don't go to winter without a black pig nutamap. That black pig nutamap drove me crazy. I walked the villages around Norsuk, Small Tatu, Lakatoro flat. And of course, there are loads of pigs. But every pig nutamap that I found was like already promised to somebody, or, you know, somebody put a down payment or something on it. So I was kind of despairing until I ran into somebody from the Port Villa Cultural Center who was visiting his family in Urupiv. And he said, oh, don't worry, the chief from Dixon is here. Dixon's full up with black pig nutamap. So we went and saw the chief. He said, no problem. Phone my son, and we arranged to pick the pig up, which we did in style because I was traveling with the Malekula kid. You might know the man, Kali Jacobus, who's a very famous world champion boxer from Southwest Bay. So Kali and I and his wife picked up the pig, and we took it down to Southwest Bay and presented it to the chief, and I mean to Jimmy, and drank kava with him to the memory of the chief. And but as I said to George then, and I've just seen a message flash up from George, which reminds me that he's messaging me on Messenger, and it reminds me that today for him is the Sabbath, so he wouldn't join us anyway because he's a Sabbath keeper.
Oh, really?
That is,
yeah, he's SDA now.
He's SDA, yes.
Oh,
so
my gosh. And below world. Sorry, George.
Yeah. So we might need to plan to schedule, if we wanted George to join us, we might need to schedule these meetings not on a Saturday.
Oh my gosh, well.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Because he just messaged me to say happy Sabbath. So there you go.
He did say, however, that he was going to join. So, and this was
really?
Saturday. I think.
I think maybe he thought it would be after the closing of the Sabbath, but 4 o'clock is not yet the closing of the Sabbath.
No.
6 o'clock would be the closing of the Sabbath, but not 4.
Hey, I wonder when George became an SDA.
I don't know. I mean, when I met him, he was. So when he did a custom ceremony to adopt me, luckily we didn't have to kill a pig, because that's what I feared, you know, that there'd be pigs involved. instead of which we just had lap sosor and presentation of maths and a few other things.
Oh,
And
no, well, it may not be legal then.
Oh, don't worry, I can live with that.
This is where
it might allow me to escape some of my obligations then.
Yeah. This is where the SDAs miss out. Yeah. If you can't do it with pigs, it's not,
all right, Alan and Kirk, I'm just going to get us back to the agenda. So what we'll do is, because we haven't got any more new members from SWBAY who are joining us, we'll move on to the next one. So, Alan, was there any updates from the land, the church, and the local population about the support of this project, or not?
Yeah, a lot. Yes, a lot.
So was anything written out on paper for us?
Yes, yep. Not for you, but for us generally. But I don't have it in my possession. George has it in my possession. A very, very important document, actually. A very significant document, which is we had formulated a letter for all the local chiefs to sign and register their support. And all of them have. I think maybe one is not there at the moment, and so George has held on to these. But the most important one of those which he showed me, and which I can probably send you a kind of a copy of somehow, a photo, is on the 1st of January, the late chief, Aiar Rantes, signed the letter himself and dated it, probably the last time he signed a letter. So that's a hugely significant thing. It's a hugely significant document, actually, which we will. So that's partly why I said to George, because I couldn't fly out of Winter. It's too busy at the moment. So I had to take a boat to Lamup, and I didn't want to take a document like that on a small boat on very choppy seas. So there's that. Aside from that, it seems that the chief, the administrator, just wait a minute, Lena, can I just finish?
Yeah.
It seems the chiefs, the administrator, and I also met the president of Malampa, are fully in support, as of course is Numa Fred at the cultural center. However, the one thing that became very clear to me is that, and this is partly thanks to Kirk, but partly to become pretty evident, is that it's not just the chiefs whose support we need and the administrators. We also need the support of the pastors, the churches, the elders, and other community leaders. So it needs a lot more consultation before we can safely say that we've got full community support from all of the 5 villages of Southwest Bay, and also that we can safely say that we've identified a piece of land which everybody is going to agree on.
I have a question. Alan, how many chiefs signed it? Do you know?
I don't know. George, I was on my way to pay my respects to Jimmy. George showed me the letters, but the only one that I really registered was the amazing signature of the late chief on the letter. And George was obviously very excited and you know, and honored that, you know, that signature is possibly the last official document that he signed. But I believe, according to George, and he would have to fill you in on this, according to George, all the other chiefs, as I say, maybe, and my recollection is a bit hazy, I don't know if he said one had just signed or had yet to sign, who's absent at the moment from the village. So the majority, at any rate, have signed, the chiefs, but the chiefs are only the start. I think you have to realize that if we don't have wider support than the chiefs, there's every chance of running into, for example, if some of the pastors or some of the churches feel that they are deeply opposed to this development, it's not going to go ahead. I can tell you that now. It's not going to go ahead. So,
Alan, on that note, when you were down Southwest Bay on your previous visit, did you feel a sense of that coming from the religious leaders or not?
No, I didn't feel that coming from the religious leaders, but I felt it coming from the lay people. And I first got an inkling of it when I took the boat back. You know, you take the early morning boat back to Lambumbu. And I was on the boat with a couple of people, and I chatted a little bit with them about it. And they made it clear that there needed to be much wider sense of ownership, and that the religious aspect of that was going to be crucial. Because if the churches, if the pastors and the elders turn against this in any of the churches, we're in trouble. And because George is SDA, that means his relationship, he hasn't said anything to me about this, but I'm guessing that means possibly that he doesn't have the best relationship with the pastor of the Boyd Memorial Church, the Presbyterian church next door. I don't know if that's the case, but since he's no longer a member of that church and has his own little religious community, that could be an issue, given where we're planning to site the church. We would really need the Presbyterian church at the very least to be fully in support of this, but I think we need more than there are many other churches beyond the Presbyterian church in Southwest Bay. And I think we need all of them to sign up to this. Now, I've done a little bit of work in that regard, actually, even before I got to Southwest Bay, because when I went to Malekula, I actually took Big Sister and I got off at the Masculines because Marcel, my friend, and his father live in the Masculines. And I just wanted a couple of days break before going down to Southwest Bay. But it just happened that the pastor, the Presbyterian pastor from Lawa, was holidaying there. And so we discussed the thing with him, and he was quite supportive. He said he said to me, the pastors have been discussing it among themselves. They know about the plan. They have been discussing it. I didn't really, I mean, we were just sitting on the edge of a boat. So I didn't really have a chance for an in-depth discussion with him. But anyway, I asked him if he would pray for me and if he would pray a blessing for the project, which he did with a lot of enthusiasm. So that was encouraging. But as I say, I mean, that's the Presbyterians. You know, we need more than the Presbyterians on board. And so I'll probably go back to Malekula early next month. That is probably in about a week's time or so, and just check with George that we've got all of the chiefs covered, and then do as much as I can in discussion with the churches and religious leaders.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful update. Gosh, you had to go through a few logistic issues there, but more importantly, for people of Southwest Bay, the cultural part of things. And I think from any anthropological point of view, you would know anything, like if you were to actually bring any project to any places, the support of the culture needs to be a priority. Kirk, I'll let you expand on that one, because I'm sure you would have an input into that after hearing what Alan has said.
Thank you, Lena. Yeah, as I mentioned last time, and as I've also mentioned beforehand by email with Alan, the thing with the churches is going to be an important thing, because unless, as I said, unless there's support from them, it could fall down in the same way that the churches came out against the custom school in Lawa. And then the church has been giving the small island museum that the Culture Center set up down in the Nahai speaking area down in southwest Malekula in the late 1990s. That got threatened by churches as well. And it's a very tricky situation, because the thing is, it's interesting. You go over to Lamap. Lamap is Catholic, and they don't have the problem more there. You know.
No.
But you know, in spite of the fact that in the early days, the Catholics in Lamap were how do you say, even stricter than Presbyterians, because I think it was about 1895 or so, the Catholic missionary in Lamap actually called in a French warship, you know, and they raided the place, burnt the sacred drums and everything, you know. Really,
I've just been reading a paper by Stuart Bedford along those issues.
Yeah, it's horrific. And the thing is, they had to, when they killed Namal of Bangreri, who was the highest ranking man at the time, the French then they burnt the sacred slit drums. They created the site of Namal of Bangreri's Nakamal as the rubbish dump, and they forbade the people to do the funerary drum rhythms. And they had to, so the people in Lamap doing the funerary drum rhythms for Namal of Bangreri, this was in the 1890s, they told me in the 1973 when I was down there that they had to go up for 10 years. They had to go periodically up into the bush and beat the funerary drum rhythms for 10 years, hidden away from the mission station, you know. And they were still very angry. And in 1991, I remember we're doing an interview with people there where they actually asked for a peace treaty to be signed between the Catholic Church and the people of Lamap. I mean, they're still very, very angry about the situation.
I'm sure.
But now it's all, it's very different. The situation has changed. I remember in 1987 was the first time in Lamap that I saw people wearing nambas in church, you know.
Wow.
In the church, in Lamap,
that's amazing.
1987 and stuff like that. But there was a particular important time. And so the situation there has changed very, very much. Whereas on the old sort of Presbyterian side, Malekula is actually quite finely balanced, the way I see it. The Presbyterians down in the southwest in the old days, Catholics in the southeast. It's sort of a balance. But the Presbyterians and the other churches don't seem to have come, in general, there are exceptions, to such an easy acceptance of the balance between custom and culture in the churches as, say, the Catholics or the Anglicans have. You know, and you've got that situation complicated now by all the hallelujah churches that come in and go. So it's really, I mean, in the older days, it was so simple because there was just one church in Southwest Bay. Now, I don't know how many are there now, Alan. It's really,
look, I haven't been there long enough, and I haven't even visited a couple of the villages. So, you know, the only villages I stayed this last time in Limbinwin, and I stayed in a church guest house, not a Presbyterian church guest house, but the Christian Life Center guest house, which is now a very big church in Limbinwin, and that's the church which Kali Jacobus is one of the leading men, I suppose, and his wife. So they were basically hosting me there, and I decided deliberately not to stay at Winter, partly because of the morning celebrations that were happening, but also because I just wanted to spend time in each village. And you know, I thought, well, this time, since I had the invitation from Kali, I would stay in Winter. It turned out to be a bit fateful because I almost got washed away by the tidal wave, but there you go.
Sorry to hear, Alan. Gosh, it's not a laughing matter. Sorry.
Oh no, it's not. I mean, look, I'll tell you what. It's a very serious matter in the sense that had that tidal wave come, say, 2 hours earlier, we would have certainly lost children on the beach. And we had no warning of it whatsoever, no warning at all, because that Limbinwin, unlike the other villages in Southwest Bay, gets virtually no mobile phone signal. We completely cut off from the world electronically. So there needs to be, I mean, one of the things that I want to do, forget about the museum, is just to see some kind of warning system put in there, or at least some sort of mobile. The Australian government sent a DFAT team to Malekula not long ago, about 2 months ago, that was supposed to boost the mobile communication system for the whole island. Well, they failed dismally because it's improved nowhere And Limbinwin is still effectively without any, you have to walk down to the lagoon entrance to even get any TVL. And Digicel, you only get, you have to wander around the village to find a spot of Digicel from time to time. So because of the place where the aerial is located, it completely misses Limbinwin. And so there's no way that we can get advanced warning if there's a tropical cyclone, a tsunami, an earthquake, a volcano. They just will not have warning until it's too late. If that had been a big, you know, a really big tsunami, I would be dead, and so would the whole village. Because that village is a low-lying village, you know. I mean, after the first wave, which luckily didn't take anybody and just did a bit of damage to property, we moved the women and children up onto the hillside where they spent the rest of the night, and the young men stayed down on the beach watching. And I said to them, if the sea goes out a long way, and we sort of identified a spot beyond which it would be, I thought it would be dangerous, you need to run and scream and warn us all to move to higher ground, because if the sea goes really far out, that's the signal that there's a really big one coming in. Luckily, that didn't happen. It went in and out, but not very far in and out. So it's a real issue, and I haven't yet had time to take that up with DFAT. I will first of all take it up with DFAT, because my understanding was, and I spoke to the commanding officer of the communications team that was here, was that they were specifically supposed to be boosting communications throughout Malekula and other islands for just such an event, so that we can get messages from the NDMO.
Work in progress, eh, Alan? So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So on that note, Alan, so I'm looking at the SWBAY update, land, the church, and the population. Do we re-explore that at our next meeting, hoping that George would join us, and that if you get access to that document, that you could send us, please?
Yeah, I should have done this. It's just been a crazy week. I can email you I took a photograph with my phone of the document signed by Chief Aiar Rantes. I can email a copy of that to each of you.
Okay. Oh, just to the whole team, maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean to the whole team. I mean, just the group email. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Thank you. That would be really good. Yeah. Does anybody have anything else to add on to the updates for the land, the church, the local population, the chiefs?
Lena, I would sort of suggest that not being anywhere near as well informed as the previous two speakers, that there are certain pragmatic things that might help to get resolved in terms of how one could at least get an outline of what a brief might be, which in turn would help to identify the sort of size of land and location of land that would be suitable. I made a series of points, which I think we could all have a think about. And in the period between being able to obviously identify the availability of land, we might be able to digest the outcome of some of these issues, and that may help in really choosing the most suitable option if there are options.
Yeah.
The first thing I had identified was how will the local community of SWBAY use the proposed cultural centre? The second was, what are the projected area requirements? In other words, have we got any idea of the sort of facility in terms of size that one is looking at trying to materialise? The next one was, what role will the centre play for visitors to SWBAY? Is there any role outside the cultural and customary role it would play that would be actually incorporated in the overall design of whatever the facility may end up being? I think that we've got to think about, what actually, Kirk told me originally that there are very few artifacts. In fact, it's really more something to do with culture and custom. And as such, how would the centre function? Because then one can get some idea in terms of staffing requirements, accommodation for administration, requirements for various services, etc. And what we were talking about before that Alan was mentioning was, if we looked at the idea of where is the energy going to come from, is it in fact going to be a possibility of solar with battery backup? How are we going to look at the provision of water, and also the plumbing provisions and the treatment of waste, so that one doesn't defile the area? So I think there are a whole range of peripheral issues that are almost universal, irrespective of what site is chosen, that it would be good to start thinking about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think the points that you've made are really important. The one thing I'm just wondering about, I forget whether I sent, I didn't get around, I don't think, to making a really good scan of the Public Works Department plan, the sort of generic plan for regional museums, which is fairly simple. It's kind of based on the structure of the existing National Museum and Cultural Centre. It's fairly simple, but it's just smaller. I mean, basically, it's fairly similar. And my kind of thought is that if we can adapt that plan to the particular environment and the particular, environmental and cultural aspects of Southwest Bay, that would be a good thing, because whether or not, I mean, in the end, the community will decide whether this is going to be a sort of a community-owned project, or whether it's going to fall under the government and under the ministry and report directly to the National Cultural Centre. That'll be up to them. But it would be good for there to be some sort of recognizable aspect of cultural centres around the country. So it's sort of, if you're somebody that's roaming around from different island hopping, let's say in Vanuatu, then you arrive somewhere and you see a building and you say, okay, that's the cultural centre, let's go and pop in there.
Well, we just have a photograph of Kirk out front.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
have a light bulb like a Kavanakama. Then that means you have to have electricity. So okay. So.
Well, we know you switched on.
Use the bucket. That's all good. The bucket is enough. Yeah. There you go. Into the bucket.
But Alan, in terms of what you're talking about, the other thing which I think is probably quite important to do is to almost get an inventory of the building skill base that exists and the materials, the natural materials that are available.
Okay,
so
the building skill base is very high. We don't need to look for builders outside of Southwest Bay. They're very good, competent builders there.
Yeah, good.
And I've identified those. One of them is Kali Jacobus, the boxer. Apart from being a world champion boxer, he also happens to be a pretty good builder. And I inspected a house that he built at Lambumbu before we went down to Southwest Bay, which was really pretty impressive. A very impressive structure. So, but the others, I mean, we need to involve as many people as possible in the building. So we don't want to sort of hand it to one. Or
no. And I think that the old adage that involve everybody early on is really important.
Yep, absolutely.
And the other thing is the material side of things, because it obviously is quite important to source as much as one can from within the local.
There. And so this is the crucial question that I think, really kind of comes back to you, is whether we can adapt the plan, or whether even we just go back to the drawing board and draw up a plan that uses mainly local materials. Because I'll tell you what, the cost of building all over Vanuatu has risen exponentially. Not only that, there's a massive cement shortage throughout the country. I don't know why, but there just is. it's almost impossible to get cement. And when you can, it's enormously expensive and it goes immediately. So if we can use a minimum of imported materials like cement, the better. If we can, you know, I mean, my original idea was for sort of a bamboo and Natangura structure, but then Stuart Bedford said, look, don't be crazy. You can't put any valuable stuff into that. It'll just get blown away in the next tropical cyclone, which is true. I mean, so I did take that on.
But Alan, I think that what one can do is what we looked at doing, and Kirk will be familiar with this, with Alex Swallow, who was a traditional builder on Mafate, is adapting traditional systems, but evolving them to a point where they have additional performance.
Exactly.
The other thing that may turn out to be a benefit, when we were building White Sands, we used actually the pumice from the underwater volcano in Tonga.
Oh, yeah.
Aggregate, lightweight aggregate. For a form of concrete. It may be possible to look at, if you do get, and I think it will come, those flotations of pumice across.
True.
It may be possible to use some of this sort of stuff in the process.
That's a really interesting idea. Okay, well, thanks for that.
I'll add something extra there, because that's something that system is used in the Western Mediterranean, where I'm, Alan, I mean, I've also doing anthropological work over a decade with traditional peasants in the interior of the Ibiza. And one of the things that they used traditionally for local cement was the volcanic tufa from volcanoes in the eastern Mediterranean. Up on the eastern coast. They call it estufa. And you crush it, and you can make it's easy to make a form of local traditional cement from that. So get everybody over to the east coast of Malekula in a month's time.
To go and fish out some pumice.
But just watch out for sharks when you're collecting.
Just while we're on that, there's another issue which kind of is a bit peripheral, but it relates to the siting of the museum. So the one possibility is to put the museum sort of adjacent to the Boyd Memorial Church, the Presbyterian Church, which I thought was quite a good idea because of its proximity to the airport and so on. But I'm kind of wondering whether it is the best idea, and whether maybe there's an argument to be made for siting the museum nearer to Deacon's grave, sort of toward the ridge on the other side of the airstrip. So, but then we run into a problem, which Stuart Bedford has mentioned to me, which is that they've been notified, I mean, the archaeologists or whoever is in charge of these things have been notified that the sort of cliffs on which Deacon's grave is sited are basically crumbling away. And it's expected that that process is expected to accelerate with climate change. And there definitely are much higher tides coming in around Malekula than probably have ever been seen before. So there's now some concern about whether they need to move the grave and presumably exhume Deacon's bones and move them back away from the cliff. And so that would be an argument against, I guess, putting the museum somewhere there, because you might have to do the same to the museum eventually if the cliff keeps crumbling away.
Alan, is it going to be something that might enter into the discussion that with the impact of climate change and the variability of climatic conditions, that one could actually automatically or in a process rule out certain areas as being even worth contemplating? So that
definitely.
We can actually have a set of priorities which are related to the real circumstances that are currently existing, and we won't waste time when suddenly we do a climatic analysis on the site. And say,
exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think before any decision were made, also, we need to send some sort of geological engineer to have a look at potential sites and to give some sort of analysis. I think that's definitely one thing, and I've sort of been looking at possible candidates to do that work. but there is somebody I know, but he's pretty busy with other stuff. But you know, I think it's essential to do that actually, because yes, I think we can. I think we can rule out some sites like altogether, just based on the kind of you know, the terrain and the potential changes to the terrain.
Well, when we were looking at when we were looking at the cultural centre with Kirk and the one in Tanner, initially in the site analysis, you can collect an awful lot from the Bureau of Meteorology in terms of cyclonic occurrences, direction, positions that are vulnerable.
That's good to know. Yeah.
And
okay, thanks.
Therefore, you know, we can do an overlay of what are the more obvious things to consider. What you're considering is somebody.
That's really good to know. I think probably Stuart Bedford will be the man to direct me to the best, you know, way to get access to that information. So I'll chat to him about that.
Okay.
Alan, can I just say something so George had written to me to say that he wanted the museum to be cited. So, you know, the late Chief Aiar Rantes was buried, I believe, not, you know, somewhere there next to the church. So George wanted the museum to be, you know, right there, and him, you know, being buried in the middle there.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure about that. But I mean, we'll have to go with the community, or, you know, whatever they want. It has to be that.
That's it. We'll have to. I mean, George expressed that self-same view to me when I was there, and he said he was very glad that the chief was buried where he was, because his idea for where the museum should be sited would mean that the chief is sort of buried in the middle between the church and the cultural center, if the cultural center is built, which would be appropriate, given the, you know, the sort of dual nature of the chief, you know, a man full up custom and also an elder of the church. Yeah, so that would be good, but there are some issues with that land, which I don't want to discuss. I don't want to discuss it right now, but I don't think we can just take that as a given.
No,
I think we still have to explore other possibilities.
Yeah.
One final thing to perhaps think about is the ongoing maintenance, because we've seen with some of the stuff that's been done in PNG that all very fine and splendid when it's first opened up, and then it just deteriorates and disintegrates. So I think that you know, long-term durability is also got to be part of the brief.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, not just long-term durability of the building, long-term sustainability of the cultural center and museum. You know, that's what's in my mind all the time, is that we can set something up and then 10 years later, it'll be a derelict little, you know, you know, if we don't set it up with a really good plan for sustainability and continuity, then we're wasting our time.
Look, I agree with you, Alan. I think part of the role of the museum is to represent a way in which you can sustainably build in those locations.
Absolutely so. Yeah, I'm so glad that I'm really on the same page with you. Yeah.
And so have I think, yeah, absolutely. So Alan, I was very interested in the fact that you had gone to explore where Deacon was buried. I like the idea. And a big part of me wants to have that museum somewhere, you know, on its own. I feel that it should be there. But I mean, that depends entirely on the villagers. You know, they have the final say. So.
You're right, Lena. Both on the community, but also on the terrain. Whether the terrain, like Michael said, whether the terrain actually is suitable there. We would have to determine that, because where Deacon is, his grave is. He deliberately wanted his grave to be buried in or himself to be buried in such a way that his feet were pointing towards the Nasare. Where he's said to have fallen foul of Spirit Lububu and died. You know, I mean, in Southwest Bay, people don't really believe that Deacon died of blackwater fever or whatever. They believe he died because he went to a forbidden Nasare. And so he is said to have asked to be buried with his feet pointing towards that self-same Nasare. And he did so because he said, I couldn't walk there, but somebody else will come and walk in my footsteps. That's what the local people, and that's a common story I've heard from all around Southwest Bay. The thing about his grave, though, is, I mean, when I got there, as I say, it's very near the edge, so that he gets the view across the bay towards Melkmes, above Lawe. And the other thing is that, I mean, it's quite difficult to get there. You scramble up a steep slope. There's not really a path there. There's you first come to the grave of Mary Boyd, who was the wife of Robert Boyd, the first missionary. And then really near to them is Deacon's grave. So when I first went there, I thought, whoa, and because they died within months of each other, I thought, were these two lovers or something? You know, how come they buried in such close proximity? The only two whites that are foreigners that are buried there. And when I said that to Stuart, he roared with laughter and he said, have you ever seen any photos of Mary Boyd? Well, I mean, apart from the fact that Mary was probably 30 years Deacon's senior, I'm not sure what what Stuart was implying, but he seemed to suggest it was unlikely that there was a romance between the two of them. It's more likely that they both just died of blackwater fever at the time.
That's right, that's not Romeo and Juliet.
No. Well, you never know. I mean, you know, one could always imagine in those, you know, in those times and parts, anything was possible.
I would like to ask, sorry, Kirk, Michael, your architecture plans, you know, having to, I'm sure you've got all the specifications of how, you know, a cultural centre, a museum for Southwest Bay, or based on Deacon. Here's my suggestion. I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity to actually incorporate a library into what you've got. So I feel that it is essential for a library to be included.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Look, Lena, what I would suggest in that context, I will type out the series of issues relating to the brief that I mentioned. I will email those to you. And I think then a general discussion can take place in terms of what are the inclusions and exclusions that really should form part of the thinking around the centre.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Kirk, did you want to have some input into it? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, there were some custom considerations about the burial ground. I'll just wait till Alan gets back there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the thing with...
sorry, I'm just getting a cigarette.
Sorry, oh my gosh, I haven't had a cigarette since 2014. Okay.
Poor you.
Blow the smoke this way. Yeah, the considerations, the custom considerations about that burial area there, that's called hambukoi. And traditionally, you wouldn't get people going to a building that was built in that area for any other thing than that's an area it's associated traditionally with death.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's good to know.
Hambukoi is the it's not a place to actually build something there.
Okay, that's good to know, because then we can rule that out as well. That's really good to know. That's good information, Kirk. Thanks.
But there's also the thing to bear in mind also is that in custom, you had almost no coastal villages. All the villages were actually inland.
Yeah,
it was
true.
Because traditionally of tsunamis or the earth shifting, which are very common. And there's really interesting, very old stories about tsunamis and the earth shifting, and also the fact that Malekula is tilting. I mean, at one point in 1965, when there was a missionary standing up on the top of the cliffs there, near where the airstrip is now, sort of filming out to Bay. The sea went out while he was filming, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
he got it on film.
Okay,
And
that explains a lot.
Yeah, in 1965, the island actually tilted, and it tilted up.
Do you hear this, Marcel?
It was about
Malekula is tilting.
yeah,
I'm just telling Marcel this because Marcel lives in the Masculines. And they've been getting
down. Yeah, what's happening, and it's still tilting. And there are reasons for this in custom as well. But it's the western side is going up, and the eastern side is going down.
Right.
And the tilt.
That's true. Marcel says that's true.
It actually has a rate of it accelerates and slows down and things like that. At one point, I think in 1965, the island actually tilted. The western side went up by about 2 feet, just like that, really quickly. And it's something that will continue because it's been going on for centuries. And it's also got to do with the fact of long-term, centuries-old custom disputes between Malekula and Ambrim. Stuff. There's all sorts of interconnections and to do with fighting between spirits and all sorts of things. So
Kirk, that's very important what you've told me, because I didn't actually know that, but it explains a lot of things that have been puzzling me. And it also it also gives us another clue as to where we shouldn't build. We shouldn't build anywhere that's going to be affected by that tilting. And then you've got the earth tremors. There's no volcanic activity on Malekula, but there are custom stories about it in the really old days. But that's further up in the bush, further up in the bush. Going back to some other things, I think that to get an agreement on this, of course, we need the agreements between the churches and the chiefs and the communities, but also about the areas, because if one is using, the way that I see it is I'm very concerned about, I'm very worried for the future of cultures in not just the whole of Vanuatu, but also Southwest Bay and South Malekula and everywhere. And I can see that maybe using Deacon as a hook upon which to hang a project in which one can promote the languages and cultures of the areas that Deacon worked in. But one should also bear in mind that it's not just the Mewun area that he was involved in, because although he was sort of based at the Boyd House there, most of his book is actually about the area that he calls Seniang, but his real name is Sinisip. And that's the area where they speak the language Nahava, which is Lembinwen in that area. Most of his stuff, most of the book is written about, although it covers Mewun and the Ninde speaking area, most of the really detailed stuff in the book is about the Sinisip, the area of Sinisip where they speak Nahava, which in the book he called Seniang, because I think, Lena, in Ninde, you call that area Seniang.
Seniang,
but, but the people there call it Sinisip.
That's right,
Okay, so is that, are you saying that that's basically where Limbinwin is?
Yes.
That's part of the, Limbinwin.
So that's because when I was in Limbinwin, I started learning the language of Limbinwin, and they said, you're not learning Ninde. We talk a different language here than the people of the other villages of Southwest Bay. So whatever you're learning here isn't necessarily going to be translatable into the other languages at the other villages.
So
I said, that's fine.
That's Nahava.
Okay, so that's also very good to know. That's
and also
very important to know.
The thing is, what Deacon did almost by accident was the fact that what his work does, it covers a very wide area. Main areas that he deals with are Sinisip, where they speak Nahava, Lembinwen and all that area there. And Mewun, where they speak Ninde. But Aiar's family are Ngati speakers. They have their own language. And this is the interesting thing. They have their own area. Willem, that was their area. That was the Ngati speaking area. And their culture is a particular type of culture that's a link, a buffer. It's a link culture. Their culture is traditionally specifically formulated to act as a linking culture. And it acts as a linking culture between Ninde speakers, Nahava speakers, and people from Minduo up in the bush, and other areas. It was a very particularly formulated type of culture that had aspects that Ninde speakers don't have, and had aspects that Nahava speakers don't have. Now, in the 1970s, when I first arrived there, the linguistic survey done by Jean-Michel Charpentier, the linguist, said that Nahati was extinct, but it wasn't. It wasn't. That's the real language of the late Chief Aiar and everybody. Their real language was Nahati. But because of the way the culture functioned, all the Nahati speakers are multilingual traditionally. They speak Ninde, they speak Nahava, they speak other languages. Because their culture had a particular function, and it was a culture that linked all the others together. And so therefore, I think in the museum, the proposed museum, however it's formulated, one could actually, well, this is my own personal hope, is that the descendants of the Nahati speakers will be given a special position, because their role was to interlink all those cultures in that area. That was their specific role. And we actually did a special project in the early 1980s to try and ensure that Nahati didn't die out. Nahati now has, I think it's possible, I'm not sure if there are any fluent speakers left. There's the late Papa Chief Aiar and the late Aile. They've got two surviving brothers.
Aichip's son.
There's two brothers, two surviving brothers.
And I'm looking forward to meeting when I go back again. I met him this time.
What would,
of course, he's claimed to be a man of powerful magic, so everybody lives in fear of him. But I'm very fond of him, so I'm looking forward to catching up with him next time.
But you see, their role, I mean, ideally, in a way, what I personally would like to see would be sort of like a bilingual school there, where Nahati language could be promoted.
I mean, I think I like your idea, Kirk, but I think we can't be too ambitious. I mean, we have to realize the more modest our ambitions are, the more likely this project is to actually come to fruition.
Well, we did I think it's actually what we got. We did a similar thing. There was a similar thing done on Eramango with one of the languages on Eramango called Ura, which when we started working with it, there were only 6 speakers left. Through a lot of sweat and tears and a lot of support from people on Eramango, what actually got going eventually on Eramango and helped to get a situation where they have, in many areas of our Eramango, bilingual schools. Which is the major language.
The thing that you need to understand, Kirk, is that when you were here and when you were at the cultural center, things were a bit different than they are now. The cultural center at the moment has been a bit rudderless for a while. It doesn't have a director at the moment, and there's a dispute about who is going to be the next director. There was somebody apparently appointed by the museum board, or is it the board or the whatever they are, who does the appointment. But whoever was appointed, it was said that the proper process hadn't been followed. So the announcement was supposed to have been made in November. It still hasn't been made. And the minister has said to me, this process can still take quite a long time to resolve. So he said, what you've got to do is not wait. Because I was saying to him, should we just wait until the new director is announced? And he said, no, don't wait, because you could be waiting a long time. And so at the moment, the museum is like a family without a daddy or a mummy. It's like pickaninnies running around. I mean, There's no, because the acting director, George Wilbur, is a very, very good man. But I mean, he's the national librarian. And that's his baby, you know, that's what he's interested in. His office is in the National Library. So he signs the papers, but he's not running the museum. The museum is basically running itself, and it's not running that well, from my impression. So your kind of idea about what the National Museum could contribute may be possible, assuming everything kind of comes together eventually under a new director. But at the moment, I don't think that's, and plus, you need to realize in the time of COVID, the last thing the government needs is to be spending money on something like this. And so my kind of undertaking to the minister is that all of the money for the museum would be raised from abroad. Everything. I said, you know, as far as I'm concerned, to the extent that I'm involved in this, we're not going to ask the government for a Vanuatu. The money needs to be raised from abroad, from Cambridge, hopefully some, from DFAT, from MFAT, from the UK, from France, from the European Union. There are plenty of sources for funding. There's a very straightforward grant that we can apply for in February. It's not a big grant, but it would give us sort of seed money. And it's a direct funding project.
The small projects grant from the British High Commission?
No, this is from the Australians, from DFAT.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There used to be a really good funding called the Australians used to have a really good form of funding called the Australian Government South Pacific Cultures Fund, which most of our projects in the 80s and 90s were actually funded through that. They're small amounts of money, but then as soon as the Liberals got in the mid 1990s, that was the second thing that they did from Canberra was they cancelled that fund, which was really.
I don't think that exists anymore. But the fund that I've been told by, you know, the political advisor at DFAT, at the High Commission, the Australian High Commission, that there is this. I mean, I think, you know, a range. It's not specific for cultural or community-based things. It's a general fund, but it's a sort of a small grant fund, and it's fairly straightforward. It's not too much kind of red tape and not too much sort of detailed reporting, and it's a direct funding. So, but then comes the question. So let's say we did get that money. Where's the money? Who's going to hold the money, and who's going to disperse it, and who's going to account for it? We haven't even got to that stage yet. So before we start even raising money and spending it, we need to know, well, we don't have a bank account for this. I'm not going to take it into my bank account, that's for sure, because it would have tax implications in Australia that I don't want. And plus, I'm not good with money. I might just spend it without realizing that I've spent it. So we need to have, you know, I think this committee, one thing that this committee could really do is to look at how we can set up an account that can be managed maybe from somebody from the outside and somebody from the inside. I mean, obviously it would have to have a sort of double signatory for any disbursement, and you know, then any man, because then we can even do, you know, GoFundMe kind of campaigns. I mean, I'll tell you what, after I pasted, I know, Kirk, you're not a Facebook fan, but I am, because everybody here uses Facebook to keep in touch. They use Facebook Messenger. So if you don't have Facebook, you're pretty well stuffed as far as communicating. But anyway, I posted some stuff after the big wave at Limbinwin. And lo and behold, I just posted some pictures of the wave. Lo and behold, a few days later, a woman I haven't seen for absolute years from Melbourne, who's a Facebook friend, wrote to me and said, I want to contribute quite a significant amount. I won't say how much it was, but she wanted to contribute a very significant amount of money to, you know, repairing any damage that had been done. And she asked me, is there like a community fund or NGO or whatever there that she can contribute to? So what I worked out is the best way was for her to contribute it to the school, because there's a school with an account, a community school at Limbinwin. And so we arranged for her, I got the bank account details of that, and she transferred the money. That was without any solicitation whatsoever. That was just, you know, a random gesture. And she said she visited Vanuatu 10 years ago. It's always had a soft spot in her heart. And when she saw these pictures, she just wanted to donate some money. She's been stuck in Melbourne. She hasn't been able to go on holiday, so she's got money in the bank, and she sent it. So we can raise money. I don't think it'll be that difficult to raise the money. The question is, who's going to hold the money and how will it be dispersed?
But Alan, in that context, I think that something we discussed in the first meeting, there's got to be some sort of structure in terms of decision making, which again would link with what you're talking about, because at the moment, who actually ends up making final call on information?
Well, there's nobody that's ending. That's why no final calls are being made. There is nobody. It's a very flat structure at the moment between you guys out there and the people in Malekula and the people here in Port Vila. It's not a pyramid structure. It's a very flat structure. There's no decision maker.
Which leads me to my agenda point here. Sorry, so I've got something on the agenda that I want us to discuss tonight, which is the official committee. The nomination. So this group has to somehow link in with SWBAY. We've got to have to figure out who's going to lead this. I'm trying to figure out some things online that we can actually come together and start the conversations. But we need a chairperson, we need a secretary, we need.
But I thought you were the chairperson and the secretary, Lena.
Right. I'll automatically assume that role.
I've just nominated you.
But it is important, you see. So we needed to, because I have been in support structures where I've had to actually organize bank accounts and sign for those. And so
then you would be an ideal person. The question just is, do you have the time? Because I know that you're very, very busy.
I am very busy, but put it this way, if it's a SWBAY project, I'll make time for it because it is important to me. So I will make time for it.
Okay, okay, that's great to hear. Yeah, okay, cool.
But I mean, here's the other note. Who's going to come in as a support person on the site? Do we have decisions have to be made, whether it's between us here or does it have to run past the SWBAY people? Well, committee, George.
Ideally, because there isn't a committee in SWBAY. I mean, there are people who have differing views in different villages, I mean, one way of kind of making it simple, and I don't know if this would be a good way because I just haven't been in Vanuatu long enough to figure that out. One way would be, and let me come back to my meeting with the minister yesterday with the Honorable Esmond Sai. So I was actually meeting him about a different matter, which concerns my visa, because my visa is dependent on my wife's visa. And well, to cut a long story short, there's been some row between me and my wife since Christmas. And there's a possibility that my visa status might change. And I'm on a dependent visa. So I needed to see the minister to discuss that with him and to say to him, if this were to happen, I might have to go back to Australia for a longer or shorter period. Basically, what he said is that after I gave him the details of the matter and some documentation, he said what they will do is they'll make a recommendation. The ministry will make a recommendation to the Prime Minister's office and the relevant people in immigration and the Department of the Interior that I be given a 2-year visa to work specifically under the minister on this project. So that would be great if that happens soon, and I hope it will happen soon. Either way, whether the rara is resolved or not, that would be like the best outcome for everybody concerned. I have to write a letter to him and copy it to the Prime Minister's office this weekend to lay out the reasons why we need the new visa. And if that comes through, then well and good. If it doesn't come through, I might not be here in a couple of months' time. So we need to, also bear that in mind. So like, it's always been my view that I can facilitate as much as possible while I'm here, but I can't be a sort of a pivotal person. The pivotal person has to be either somebody from the government or somebody from Southwest Bay. And I would suggest somebody from the government for this reason. Southwest Bay is not a united community. I mean, there's probably no community in the world that's, you know, a community in the sense that, you know, it's a sort of everybody speaks with one voice. Certainly in Southwest Bay, that's not the case. It's well known for jealousies, Nameli leaves being stuck in front of, you know, projects. So my idea is actually, this should be driven by somebody from the ministry or the National Museum and Cultural Center. Should be the pivotal person. Somebody like Kaito would be ideal because he's both the curator of the National Museum and he's from Southwest Bay. Whether he's got the time or inclination, I don't know. But
did he say he was going to join in, or what was the answer back from his phone?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Marcel phoned him and he said he was good, but maybe he's just having technical problems. I'm guessing that's what is the case.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's drinking kava. Yeah, technical problems. La la, you know only too well how we live in Vanuatu. I have to tell you, Kirk, we've been having, because of the rao with my wife, we've been having family reconciliation, ceremonies for the last 3 nights with the local chiefs here where I'm staying at the moment. And so I've imbibed an awful lot of kava and had very little sleep over the last 3 days. Then culminating in the meeting with the minister. Yeah, it's been pretty wild.
Oh my gosh. Well, lucky you're in Kava land, because whatever happens,
yeah, that's right.
Whatever happens during the day, after about 5 o'clock, at least for men, at least for men, everything's okay. at least for a few hours. At least for a few hours. You know, at least for a few hours.
Yeah. That's
I was going to say, Alan, I have bought a what do you call it? The flying kite.
Oh yeah?
I have, yep. I bought one for Christmas, and so
nice.
I'd love to come down to Southwest Bay to test it around and see.
I would love you to.
Yeah, so
you must.
It'd be great to actually come down.
Yeah. Well, how amazing would it be to meet up there?
It'd be wonderful. But I mean, talking about who would front up the project, I mean,
so it can't be me. What I'm saying is, at the moment, I can't be a pivotal figure because my position, my visa position is at the moment has a question mark hanging over it.
Sure, and thank you for making that clear to us. So, yep, that's all good. I was just going to point out something that I had thought about, just because the project is, you know, we're talking about the project, there's something going, and I wanted to throw it in. Just like Kirk had suggested a bilingual school in there, I am hoping to actually add something onto the Southwest Bay Airport beside that, to turn that site there into a botanical garden.
Oh, what a great idea.
So
I love that idea, Elena.
A botanical garden.
So that's a fabulous, and what a great site for that.
So, and
a brilliant idea. Yeah, perfect. It couldn't be more perfect.
And I think it would really accompany this project to make it a little bit more attractive. And the other idea I had was, so you know Tenstick Island.
I do.
You do? Yeah, Kirk, you remember Tenstick Island?
You can't miss it.
Yeah, so you can't miss it, Southwest Bay. I'd like to suggest that island be turned into a pest-free, predator-free island for Southwest Bay, or all part of the conservation. So,
great idea.
That's part of this, you know, the project here. It comes as secondary infrastructure to the community. So
I think both of those are great. And I think Tenstick Island, I mean, it's such a landmark, and you know, there's so many stories about it. It should form part of the sort of wider, you know, museum. If you think of the the actual building structure of the museum is just the starting point, and the real museum is the whole of Southwest Bay. You know, the museum, we're hoping, my idea is that, you know, whatever structure we have for the museum, that's the starting point for a visit. You don't just come and visit the museum, wander around for a little bit in a small dusty museum and then go home. No, you get a map there, you get a guide, you know, whatever, and you get taken to all of the interesting places, including Tenstick Island and the different villages. And then you go snorkeling, and then you go to the botanical garden, and then you go and, you know, buy things from the market, and then you try the kava, and then you try the medicinal cannabis, and so on. You know, so you know, it's the actual building is just the start.
So yeah, so those were my two secondary
I think
infrastructure
great
plans
ideas
to the museum. So and I'd like to drive the secondary part. So yeah, so I think that, you know, that project, I feel like I'm responsible for that project. So
fantastic. Yeah,
and that's with the help
Thank
of the university here. So
yeah, wow. Thank you, Lena. That's just a fantastic suggestion. I just love both of those ideas. They'd be a wonderful, you know, whatever, even if the actual museum structure never got off the ground, just doing those would be, you know, a fantastic addition to Southwest Bay.
we shall see, eh? Kirk?
And until the botanical garden office gets overgrown by, what's that? Roplong America.
Roplong America, yeah.
yeah, until it gets overgrown by that.
Dear.
That's really spreading like crazy, yeah?
It is, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, does anybody have anything else to actually say on that, or can we move on to the proposal? I wanted to say something about the proposal.
Sure, let's move on.
Let's move, okay. So Alan, thank you so much for sending your proposal.
But it wasn't really, it's the sort of the beginnings of a proposal, not really a proposal.
Right, the foundation. So I said I would build up on it, and then I would send the document around to all of us, and we can just add to it. And then hopefully that would help us with the funding, you know, the funding application. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, Lena, with that, just keep in mind when you're working on it, and anybody who wants to make additions, that proposal also, I think, needs to go to the Minister and the Director General for their approval. So it's not just for funding. I mean, and maybe it needs two different documents, I don't know, or two versions of the same document, but we do need a document that will go to the Minister and to the Acting Director General for their approval.
Sure. Yeah. Kirk, Michael, do you have anything to say on the document?
Not really. The only thing I was going to add is that in the context of what Alan was saying and what you were saying, that in terms of the citing, I think that to have a preconceived idea, be it from the ministry and the standard format they've got, is not really the best way to go. I think the building will evolve out of the site.
Right.
And I think, you know, the land is really important in terms of it talks. And I think what ends up being on there must be part of that land's conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really great point. And that's maybe one I need to raise with because I think the National Museum and Cultural Centre are sort of quite sold on the idea of having this fairly generic, and even Ambong having this generic sort of, you know, design for regional cultural centres to have that as the basis. But actually, I'm not sure that will be, architecturally, I'm clear that won't be the best way to go. Anthropologically also, that's certainly not the best way to go. Kaitip's about to join us, I see. But
look, I think what you're saying, Alan, is quite right, because Vanuatu as a whole is anything but a cookie cutter.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so it doesn't really make sense to just have that, you know, it's kind of depressing just to have that generic structure. I mean, it would be much, much better, especially since, you know, I mean, in the absence of an architect, or if we had to be faced with the prospect of paying top dollar for an architect, then I would say, yep, let's go with the generic design. But since, you know, we have your kind offer of a contribution, you know, to deal with the architectural aspects of this, then I see no reason why we shouldn't do as you say, identify the land and then let the design and the structure and even the materials kind of be, in a certain sense, you know, organically determined by the site.
Exactly, yeah.
Can I just add to that? So, Alan, so the consensus was that they were going to place the site Lowintua, right? So where the church
No, that's not the consensus. That's George's idea, and I think Ambong's idea, but there's no sense of a consensus about that. There are others that have different ideas.
I hear you. So what's been in the past? I know that area has been really prone to flooding, so it can easily flood. So that's another something to think about.
Yeah, true, true.
Oh, wow.
I think the word Wintua actually comes from the Ninde language term Wentu, which means like an area where when it rains it gets swampy, like a swamp or mud. Wentu, actually, I think, Lena, doesn't Wentu in Ninde, doesn't that mean like a swamp or a marshy ground? Yeah,
that's right, a swamp. Yeah.
Soft mud.
So,
that's how Wintua got its name.
Therefore, Wintua might not be the best place to build it. And given what you were saying about Deacon's involvement and interest in the area around Limbinwin, well then, I mean, then you could argue maybe the best site would be somewhere between Wintua and Limbinwin. Now, as you may know, there's a ranch, there's a farm between, sort of adjacent to the lagoon, and the current leasee or whatever is a New Zealand man that I happened to meet in Santo. One option would be to just get a piece of that land, because the great advantage of getting a piece of that land is that it wouldn't be subject to dispute. It would be neutral land. At the moment, it's occupied by a New Zealander. It's not occupied by anybody. So it wouldn't be seen as being part of this village or that. Ah, look, here's Ambong and Kaitip.
Number one, we're number one, we're number one.
Number one.
Yeah, all family.
At the cultural center. Oh.
Yes, my gosh.
Kaitip, you need to put your microphone on. I think Kaitip doesn't have his microphone on. Microphone, yeah.
You got him?
I don't think so. Oh, there we are. That's better. Yep. Ambong. They still, I can see a little kind of red microphone in the bottom corner. Yeah, that's the way. Thanks, Nina.
We're good, we're good, we're good. Unmute. Where? Okay.
Looks like they're walking somewhere. So
yes, where there may be a better connection, huh?
Yeah, they probably are going somewhere that they can get a better signal.
Yeah. Over in Reynolds, Nakamal, I think, across the road.
Probably. They're in the museum now, but we're
so you're getting a chair, obviously. I wondered if
I'm gonna get a beer.
sweetheart, here's Ambong and Kaitip.
Okay, but Kaitip's still muted.
So Alan, maybe you can text him. You can ring him and tell him.
Okay, okay. Yeah, let me ring him. Let me ring him.
Just
Where the hell? Okay, I've just dropped my phone. Oh man. Okay, let me ring him.
I can't see him.
That's well, they've gone off. They've got real problems with the connection.
As usual.
Yeah. Here's there's Ambong. That's Ambong. Yeah.
Can he hear us?
But it's muted.
Muted.
So Alan's texting Kaitip to unmute it.
I'm going to try and actually ring him. I'm just trying to find where the hell is he?
But do you think they can hear us?
Probably, maybe they could hear us, but
Yeah, they could. Kaitip, you need to. Oh, there you go. He's unmuted. Okay.
Good.
He's unmuted, but now he's frozen. So I'm phoning him now. Let's see if he gets the call.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Oh.
Yeah, we can hear you.
But only through the phone. Wait, now we can hear. Oh, yes.
No, we can hear it.
Okay.
Ah, good. Oh, number one. We're number one. Oh, vote law boo boo.
Okay, number one now.
Number one.
Oh, number one, we're number one.
Okay.
Hello,
Happy New
Ambon.
Year,
Good,
Happy
good.
New Year, family. Oh,
Is it on?
Hello,
Happy New
Ambon.
Year.
Hello,
Happy New Year.
Kaitip. How are you?
Yeah.
How are you
Good,
both?
good.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good to
Good.
see you
I'm good.
faces.
I'm good too.
Yes, you
Yeah,
two fellas
he
look
looks
good, very
great.
good, huh? Number one,
Ambon,
we're
you
number
look
one.
really good.
Huh?
Very good.
Yeah, you too, Kaitip. You look younger and younger.
From Kama, I think.
Yes, mellow.
Okay.
Good, huh?
Ambon looks great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, really good to see you, Ambon.
Yes.
So
Big fella, sorry, go long you everyone from Luz Blanc, Papa Chifaya.
Yes, sorry, Thomas. Sorry.
yeah.
boom, boom.
Time we Elena been starting meeting him, we make him 1 minute silence, lo memory belong late Papa Chifaya area.
Okay. Yeah, me look each up agenda today. So how far now? Me to it is come late. How far now you feel like go with the meeting?
Mitifali sa boy lo itifali na mo. No, sorry. You go through halfway through the program finish, yeah?
Ah, okay, good.
But you ask him Lena by me chairwoman or one of you.
So you got three fellas something no more stuff before you me finish your meeting. Pay him your right by you meet by me record them every something. Later you fly watching back again. Yeah.
Okay, good.
From him you call us up 2 hours now. Me fly stop the meeting. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Ladies at 6 o'clock.
But now yeah, in 6 o'clock.
Sorry, me him 6 o'clock New Zealand time. Sorry.
Okay.
Him,
Ladies at 1 to 10.
no, him you're right.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
So one where me fly one say by you to fly I make him you to fly introduce him you to fly you go lo group huh? After you meet time figure him out say you meet stop where.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Me first time me employ me Ambon Thompson. Me work with them Vanuatu Cultural Center. Section where me look out them me to wait them one of the audio visual national film more photo where me start look at them lo site lo archives. Kaitip.
Okay, let me guide it. Me curator of the National Museum. Yes, me look at the National Museum. Yes, now.
Daras. Thank you, Ras, Pak. Yes. When me briefing you to follow no more, lo one and when we play been discussing, you to play catch up with them last hour, call us up 2 hours when we play talk. So full up lo one and when we play discussing, hear me about Southwest Bay update. So Alan, have you been talk about full up about update lo ground lo Southwest Bay, lo church, more all manually step inside lo all different villages. So Hemia now Alan have been talam lo me fala from. We've like talk about where now by Yumi Karamani lo museum. So from Yumi stop lo COVID-19. By imekim ihatumas lo government lo Vanuatu, please have given me project here any money. So me vlai eating about say suppose any money we come inside lo fund the museum, by hemi must come outside lo funding lo government, by hemi international funding, it come lo help the museum. So by make him too much pressure lo Vanuatu government or lo Yufala. Narafala, something where me like talk about hemi secondary infrastructure law museum lo Southwest Bay, Deacon Museum. We've like been talk about say, but yes, by hemi museum, where by hemi including one library. Suppose Michael hemi specify every something we go inside the house. Museum, so he got all specifications for him. All secondary infrastructure way by hemi a touchy come lo museum, hemi all suggestion blo me where me bin talamat lo group by lo site lo airport, Southwest Bay Airport, where you make a big fella bush where hemi landing lo Southwest Bay Airport. Me got plan with them university where me staple him, plotanem ground ya. Suppose hemi all right with them all land owners plus Southwest Bay, le hemi come one botanical garden. Le hemi one big fella botanical garden plus Southwest Bay attraction. By me driving project here from hemi part lo proposal where me propose them, le help a museum. One law all project here back again. Hang on a moment. We have me law survey connect with them 10-stick island. You meet Panem Island here, you go law pest free, predator free. So you not you meet survey help him conservation law Southwest Bay. So him ya now brief summary, law me survey update and you to follow with them.
Okay.
Alan, go ahead. You've got a question?
Yeah, it's not so much a question, just a point. And sorry, I understand your Islam pretty well, but I'm not confident enough to talk it myself, so I'm not going to try. But there's one issue with the botanical garden that occurs to me. I don't exactly know where you're thinking of, but I'm thinking, do you know where the site of the first mission house is? Because it sounds to me like you might be thinking that the garden might be around there, which might work, but it shouldn't in any way affect the structures that remain of the first mission house, which should be preserved and be part of a kind of a cultural trail, I suppose, or historical trail that would lead. So, I mean, a botanical garden would be really great. And, you know, maybe there could be a sort of a trail that leads from the museum through the botanical garden and then to the site of the first mission house, and then to the grave of Deacon and Mary Boyd.
I hear you, Alan. Yeah. Does anybody want to comment on that, Kirk? Go ahead.
What I'll just mention for Ambong and Kaidip, to vela one way me been really sort of interested in him belong suggest him say okay, you may got all talk or something or same alongside belong ground or where now belong put them or something or same. They want something where me really personal interest belong me or hope belong me say suppose when something by come out long or planning yeah so sometime long future we want them too much belong you may think heavy belong use them along one way where you may have lift them up language custom or culture be same from way deacon even work or same him been based low win tour or same be big fella half long book below him about old man where you really tell him old man Seniang, where or get only tell him Sinisip, or every blog half long book long deacon him about old man Seniang. Not half him about old man where Maywun. Be one something where him important to us, the same family blow late Papa Chief Aiar, where him been where Papa blow him or get a line here, he been playing one big fella role, all work here. Him language blow get a nati, one different language. Now yeah, say you me everyone, you me say Papa Chief Aiar, Aile or get you me talk, say Ninde with them or get her. But or get only been got one stampa language blow get her. Lawyer blow William, proper language blow. So I think he got small number no more while he talk nati yet. But him But Nati, he hold them plenty something where he link between all different area here. So me worry too much. I suppose Nati he lose forever by something where from my language more culture. Below all man really been talk Nati. Hemi one special language more culture where hemi one link. Where hemi one link between all different Narvala culture. So me worry too much, me look suppose he got one way sometime in future blow, try and help blow, lift him up. Interest blow language nati, yeah. From him he been got one special role, or side blow custom, blow play between all man we talk Ninde, all man we talk Nahava, but all man blow all Narvala language, yeah. Or same him one thing more where we just put them. May want something below think about below future or say you mean no hurry up along or something yeah. I think first something below sort them out say ground want them ground now more you put them where more make sure say you got agreement between all chiefs all church more community
okay
no
good no
oh sorry. I was just going to make one comment on Alan's last comment, which I think is very important. I think that what he's identified is that, in fact, it's really a cultural hub that we're looking at creating rather than a cultural centre. In other words, it expands out and embraces what's around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, you couldn't have put it better, Michael. That's exactly what is in my mind. To the extent that, I can make a contribution. I mean, in the end, the community and others will decide the final form, but that's what I would like to see personally. And that's what I think would be most workable and sustainable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. I'll give the floor to Bumbum Ambong and Kaitip. Yeah, please go ahead. I think we've only got about 10 minutes. I'll try and extend that. So yeah, before the 2-hour mark is up.
Yes, in regards to the land, the side law ground, court hemi declare and finish a family Thompson now, but only on a law area where airport is established him, including place where church is established, more place where you may want them to put museum lehem. So law side law side long ownership law ground. I think hemi no too much worry lo yumi from hemi one original thinking where it start long time finish. Say Mumbai only develop them one museum lo plesia lo nemblo tikon pero thinking way Ubin Resha Mafia Mikola all on up lo ground we stop thinking say while museum we stop lo the other side lo airport and the other side lo airport and a place where first mission house established him you go include them place where very crown established him now that whole area should be developed also should be a like a what do you call it should be a botanical garden or area and that area just should be respected at all times because you have graves of all people all the staff cemetery below Deacon and also Mrs. Boyd was also buried there. So that area is not finished by Yumi preserve and stuff. It's just how Yumi look Yumi Sabi developer.
Daras.
And also I think community too or the Sabotan big one. Ding law museum.
Kaitip nagbian sadale kumbatinga ay manmane.
Yes. So sorry, part law agreement where or lana or Likatia now or design and list law airport is start finished with them land owner. So all side meetings by got problem there.
Bubum ambong no you tell him say you got all signing the document where only stuff finish up between Yufalam with them community. Alani been tell him small about you think say by group here is have got access to all document here or no? Plus have a look plus inform him everyone or him one private document where him you falano.
No, also document him should be below group only got access to him. But is that way them church yet from him now him look with them area council of chiefs with them area administrator for SWBAY with them all church too including Malamba province law Karama approval law project law museum. So once you make out all paper or agreement is up, those documents will be available for the group to have an access to it.
Okay, thank you, Ras. Kurt, you want to add any something? Michael, do you have anything you want to share on that?
No, I think I'm pretty good. What I'll do is what I said I was going to do is make a list of those things we were discussing and forward it to you. And I think we've covered quite a lot of ground today, actually.
We have. I've realized I've only got 7 minutes left. Can I just touch very briefly on something that we have discussed before? So that is an official committee that we need to seriously think about for this museum. So we need to have a structure in place. So Naya, when boom with them kaitip to come inside. Any suggestions? How na you miss have work together or who had him who nice up inside the committee?
Okay, thinking I think you could give me no more you work first time until as I'm thinking no with them church or otherwise by me current church no more is supposed to one committee to SWBAY you current church no more with them all feel I got hamas 2-3 field established SWBAY. Okata by me work with them okata first time. So time where you may look say some process step go where okay now you got now we got funding now. So that's done by me I extend them all committee all one area, one field, sir. Lo only come part lo port lo museum or something else. Meeting lo
Daras. Anybody else wants to add law Kaitip?
I think Kaitip, yes. Me look say that's probably the best way in this early stage, because if you have too many other people coming in from outside, it's going to make things too complicated. So the more in these sorts of situations, the more man place you have in it, like this, the way that Kaidip has suggested, that will help to make things go smoothly in these very early stages. So thank you to mas Kaidip lo ting ting below you. Mo man me glad we're looking face below you to vala, yeah. Yes.
I think what Kaidip has say, it's what we have already decided, that we give it in a small group for the time being.
Mm.
So we'll start with the
I mean,
focus
in
group,
terms, can I just make a point? In terms of how, I don't know exactly what you mean by official, what makes the committee official or not official, but I do think there has to be, given that at present, and this might not continue, there's a restructure going on in government, but at the moment, we fall under, any museum project like this falls under the Ministry of Justice and Community, is it Ministry of Justice and Community Services?
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, so that's where we are. And my own position is very much, you could say, I mean, I owe my involvement in part to George's encouragement to get involved, but it's more specifically thanks to the encouragement of the minister himself. So from that point of view, I think if there's to be any official committee, that has to be approved by the Director General of, and so I think that needs to be formed part of a proposal that can be put to the Minister and the Director General for their approval.
Okay.
That would make it official in the sense that that would give it the government of Vanuatu stamp of approval.
Okay, yeah.
And their support. So
Yeah,
I don't think we're in a position outside of, I mean, you know, apart from the fact that Kaitip and Ambang are employed by the government and fall under the auspices of the Ministry of Justice. But I think we're not in a position to make an official committee without the approval of the Director General, at least, if not the Minister. And the Minister has expressed a very great interest. As I say, I met with him yesterday. He has a very great interest in this project, a personal interest as well as an official interest.
Okay, Hemi Gutamas, Alan. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think once we have all the names, of those who will be in this committee, and then those names will be submitted to the Vanuatu National Cultural Council for their approval, and then to the minister.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Ambang, that has to be the process.
Yes, and if there's any changes to the committee in future, it has to go through the same process.
Exactly. Exactly.
Look,
straight no more. Straight no more.
Yeah.
Okay, Hemi Gutamas. Thank you. So me got lo agenda blomi. You got any other businesses where you fly one and talk about before you meet decide law next meeting blue you meet?
Oh, sorry, Lena, maybe just want to pass some talk long. Igolo Ambong more Kaidip from me no looking to well a long time. Look, be glad to must look me to well. Me glad. Please you pass some sorry blow me go long brother Jimmy, yeah? Tell me next time you look at him.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that.
Yes, thank you to Massa.
Yes. Me already talk lo brother Jimmy me talk suppose me hand him string blow pig me say this one me from Kirk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you Thomas. Thank you Thomas.
I really appreciate that. You'll get your reward. You'll get your reward.
Yeah, I know in the Nakamal in the sky. Don't worry, if I'm in Sydney, you're going to take me to the Nakamal down the road from you, Kirk, as well.
Okay, on that note, Kirk, anything else before I go on to the next meeting date?
Okay, as just to say that, look, I'm here. I'm willing to support. I think it's a really important project, however it turns out. Main thing is really to lift up profile of languages and culture, not just in Southwest Bay, but in South Malekula.
Agreed, Kirk, agreed, wholeheartedly agreed.
Yeah. Oh, Lena, just for the record, can I just make 2 corrections from the last meeting? Very minor points, but as you recorded it, it's actually quite important. I made a comment about a pistol that had been given by Martin Johnson in 1917 to the chief of the Big Nambas village in Northwest Malekula. And I said, I think the name of the chief in the recording, I said was Arnapat, but actually it was his father, Nihapat. Sorry, it's not important for Southwest Bay, but because it's recorded last time, it's important to correct it. And also I made a comment about this. Some people in my family tend to have tend to talk too much. So I apologize for that, but I said it's a hereditary thing. Blood. And I mentioned an ancestor who'd actually had a dispute with the King of England at one point, and because he talked too much, and he was standing up for land rights for the peasants, for the man place in England. And they he was had his mouth stuffed and he was hung. And I said it was in the year 1472, but sorry, I was thinking about something else at the time, but it was actually in the year 1549 when that happened. And they put his name on the British traitors list for 400 years, and it wasn't removed until the late 1950s, when they finally realized that the one that had been killed, Abu Blomi, long time past finished, was actually a national hero. So it's been taken off of the British traitors list. So it took 400 years to do that. So that was just to correct something from the last meeting. Sorry, there's nothing to do with Southwest Bay.
No worries. Thank you too much.
Michael, one interesting story, yeah?
Very interesting.
Michael, any final things that you would like to say?
Look, the one thing that's running around in my head is that I think it's probably quite important to slowly move away from the old colonial idea of what cultural centres are. And I think that there's a new idea that fits a living facility rather than something that is actually totally focused on a collection. I think, life is very important in Vanuatu. And I think that, celebrating the existence of that may in fact be an interesting direction to at least give consideration to.
I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. I mean, it strikes me, the subtitle of Deacon's book is Malekula, A Vanishing People. And Kirk is talking about vanishing languages and cultures, but we're also talking about just changing and evolving languages and cultures. I don't think we should be too hung up about the idea of vanishing and disappearing. Languages do come and go. And, I think what you're saying, Michael, is yes, this is absolutely right. We should be raising the profile of what's happening in Southwest Bay, as well as its history, as well as custom, as well as, what the Apu and Spirit Probubu have left there, but also what's happening there now. So as you said, I mean, really the idea should be, I think, the best idea from my point of view would be of a kind of, as you put it, a cultural hub. Not just something, not as you say, a dusty collection. That would be the worst outcome.
Yeah, I think, look, it goes back to one thing I mentioned last time that Grace Melissa said to me, that don't you realize we litter with art? And I think, it's all around.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you,
nice
Alan.
one, nice one.
Thank you too much. Okay, to Boom Boom Ambong, more Katip, any last words before you close the meeting?
No, I think me first time we joined them Zoom here. I missed I think 1 or 2 already, but I'm glad to be part of the group and looking forward for more of this kind of Zoom in the future. Thank you.
Yes, I think me I will see lo midlay complete from the problem lo time. Lay no sabi ko time. Hopefully this next Zoom by midlay stable time. So it means 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock New Zealand, 4 o'clock Vanuatu.
Yeah, look, next time, Kaitip and Ambang, next time, I did say I would try to coordinate with you this time, but this week it's just been crazy. I've had custom ceremony on 3 nights of the week, and then meeting the minister yesterday. It's just been too full up. So, but next time, maybe we 3 can get together, you know, and make sure that we've got the right time and get it set up so that it all goes smoothly.
Yeah, no, that would be good. That would be good.
All
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm just very quickly. So thank you all so much for participating. This has been a very productive, more than 2 hours of discussions that we have had. A very long agenda, but we have actually run through all of them. Can you believe it? So it is good. We're moving forward. I'm proposing that the next meeting be held on Saturday, the 19th of February, 2022, but we can discuss that. Suppose the others aren't able to actually make it. We'll keep in touch via email. So yeah, that's it really from me. Thank you all. Go well. God bless, and we will see you guys at our next meeting.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much. Oh,
Thank you.
two fella, one last work blow you go now, yeah, you go Law Reynolds. 100, you go Law him on behalf of me, yeah. Dalbete.
Dale.
Thank you very much.